Welcome to Hollywood Graveyard, where we set out to remember and celebrate the lives of those who lived to entertain us by visiting their final resting places. Today we conclude our tour of San Diego, where we'll find such stars as Anita Page, Victor Buono, Archie Moore, and many more. Join us, won't you? Picking up where we left off in our last video, today we conclude our tour across San Diego, visiting a number of cemeteries throughout the city. Where the 805 and 94 meet, we find a cluster of cemeteries and mausoleums, all bundled together. Holy Cross, Greenwood, Mount Hope, and the historic Cypress View Mausoleum. We'll then finish up on the coast at Fort Rosecrans, a national cemetery. If you haven't done so already, be sure to check out part 1. Let's begin at Holy Cross, a Catholic cemetery, which was dedicated in 1919. Our first stop here is near the eastern end of the cemetery, in the Elizabeth Seton Urn Garden. What's this? Is that a well? Never seen that in a cemetery before. I wonder what's down there. Probably not. Great movie though. This is Johnny Downs. He was an actor whose career began as a child when he was cast as a regular in the Our Gang series from 1923 to 1927. After he outgrew the series, he found his niche in college musical films in the 30s. Then, in the 1950s, he hosted his own kids' TV show, The Johnny Downs Show, right here in San Diego. He died from cancer at age 80. The next section north is St. Jude. Just in from the road, we find Anita Page, dazzling star of the late silent and early talkie film eras. She rocketed to fame in films like Our Dancing Daughters and The Broadway Melody, which was the first sound film to win an Academy Award for Best Picture. At the height of her popularity, she received over 10,000 fan letters a week, second only to Greta Garbo. She'd perform alongside some of the era's leading men, from Clark Gable and Ramon Navarro to Buster Keaton. She quit acting in the 30s after meeting her husband. Later in life, she would return to Hollywood, making appearances at film festivals, delighting audiences as a star from the long-past silent era, and even appearing in a handful of films, including Frankenstein Rising. She lived to be 98. Across the street west is Calvary section. Rolling in along this row, we meet Charlotte Henry. She was one of the early actresses to portray Alice in the 1933 film adaptation of Alice in Wonderland. The next year, she performed as Bo Peep alongside Laurel and Hardy in March of the Wooden Soldiers, originally called Babes in Toyland. She continued to perform in film into the 40s, but soon lost interest in acting and relocated to San Diego. She died from cancer at age 66. North of here is the Holy Cross Mausoleum. Let's go check it out. A unique feature here in the mausoleum is a series of mosaics that line the halls, many dedicated to someone who has passed. Let's make our way over to the St. Felicitas Chapel. Here we find the crypt of William Gargan. He was an actor for radio, film, and television. He was well known for playing typical Irish parts, like policemen, detectives, or priests. Among these fictional detectives he's known for playing are Martin Caine in the series Martin Caine Private Eye, and Ellery Queen in 3 feature films. He also received an Oscar nomination for his role as Joe in the 1940 film They Knew What They Wanted. He died of a heart attack while on a flight between New York and San Diego. Moving on to the next cemetery, just southwest of here, is Greenwood Cemetery. It's a grand cemetery, Greenwood. Beautiful too. Founded in 1907, the cemetery spans 125 acres. Some of the more unique features across the grounds exuding an almost Disney-esque charm. For our first stop here, we make our way around to the Lily Pad Lake, one of the most distinctive features here at Greenwood. Overlooking this lake are rows of crypts, a one-of-a-kind view for some of the dearly departed here at Greenwood. Along one of the upper rows of crypts, we find the final resting place of Victor Buono. He had a Lawton-esque grandeur and Shakespearean eloquence on screen. On film, he's perhaps best remembered as Edwin Flagg, alongside Bette Davis in the acclaimed horror thriller, Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. The role earned him an Academy Award nomination.
Edwin, you certainly can play, can't you?
And you certainly can sing.
Oh, thank you. I can see you've done this kind of work before.
No, not really. Actually, I've spent most of my time on serious music, composing and that sort of thing.
You mean this would be your first contact with show business?
Not exactly.
He also played the lead in 1964's The Strangler. Buono took his talents to TV too, fondly remembered as the larger-than-life King Tut in the 60s Batman series, as well as appearances in shows like 77 Sunset Strip, Perry Mason, and Rod Serling's Night Gallery. Victor Buono died of a sudden heart attack in 1982 at just 43. He was entombed here with his mother, though his name does not appear on the crypt. If we circle around and make our way toward the north, we reach East Lake section on the right. Here we find jazz master and magnificent human being, James Moody. He played jazz saxophone and flute, known for the bebop style. Moody's perhaps best remembered for his hit performance of Moody's Mood for Love, his version of I'm in the Mood for Love. He would play with other legends from Miles Davis to Dizzy Gillespie, and in 1998 he was chosen as an NEA Jazz Master. He died from cancer at age 85. Let's make our way now to the Cathedral Mausoleum just behind us. How often do you find yourself the only living soul around when wandering the halls of a mausoleum? Happens to me all the time. This east-facing corridor, which captures the rising sun through large windows, is appropriately named the Sunshine Corridor. This is where we find Ernestine Schumann-Heink. She was one of the legends of the opera stage in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, hailed as the world's greatest contralto. She made her debut in Europe in 1878 at the age of 17, and would become known for her performances of the works of Wagner. Ernestine made it to the States in 1899, performing in New York, Chicago, and eventually settling in Southern California. She made gramophone recordings as early as 1900, one of the music world's very early recording artists. Later in life, it would become a Christmas tradition across the nation to listen to Ernestine sing Silent Night on the radio, both in English and German. She would even appear as herself in the 1935 film Here's to Romance. A year later, she passed away from leukemia at age 75. The northern end of the mausoleum features a number of open-air courtyards and garden areas. In the garden court area, we find author Harold Bell Wright. He was a best-selling author of fiction and nonfiction, said to be the first American author to sell 1 million copies of a novel and to make $1 million from selling fiction. Among his best-known books is The Shepherd of the Hills, written in 1907. It would be made into 4 films and a TV special. The best-known version starred John Wayne in 1941. Other successful novels include The Winning of Barbara Worth, which would also be made into a film. Harold Bell Wright died from pneumonia at age 72. Just east is the Rose Court. In this hallway spanning the 2 courtyards, we find husband and wife John and Marie Maroldo, who went by the stage names Johnny Winters and Lady Little. Johnny was an Italian-American dwarf, and Marie, also a dwarf, was from Paris. They began entertaining audiences on the vaudeville stage, where they would meet and marry, becoming a duo act. They also had small roles in a handful of films, like The Terror of Tiny Town, and perhaps most notably, as Munchkins in The Wizard of Oz. They retired to San Diego, and not much is known about their later lives until their deaths in 1985 and 1979, respectively. Our last stop here is in the massive Bible Mausoleum, which almost has an air of a sprawling luxury hotel for the dead. Let's head up to the 3rd floor and back to the corridor of the chapel. Here we find Corey Rand. Some of his more notable roles as an actor include Ramon Vega in Predator 2 and the Sollozzo lookalike in Hot Shots Part 2. He also had roles in biopics about both Marilyn Monroe and Frank Sinatra. He was just 56 when he died, of undisclosed causes. He's entombed here with his life partner Terry, both having died quite young, but reunited forever. Just across the street southwest of Greenwood is the historic Cypress View Mausoleum. We've been to a lot of mausoleums, or mausolea, over the years, and Cypress View ranks right up there with the likes of the Great Mausoleum and Mountain View in terms of beauty and grandeur, particularly in terms of its art collection, one of the larger private collections in California, with hundreds of marble and bronze statues, paintings, vintage furniture, and stained glass windows. It's a must-see if you're in the San Diego area. How's this for an apropos poem? There is no death. The stars go down to rise on some other shore, and bright in heaven's crown they shine forevermore. Speaking of stars, we could admire the beauty here all day long, but we have some famous graves to find, so let's get to it. Our first stop here is in the large hallway that runs perpendicular to the main hallway. Here is the niche of Amelita Galli-Curci. She was an Italian opera singer, one of the elite coloratura sopranos of the 20th century, known for the sweetness and versatility of her voice. She made her debut in 1906 in Verdi's Rigoletto and quickly rose in popularity throughout Europe and eventually the US. She would sing with both the Chicago Opera and the Metropolitan Opera in New York. Amelita was also a popular recording artist. In fact, you're listening to her right now. She died from emphysema at age 81. Amelita was married to and often accompanied on piano by Homer Samuels. He was also a composer, writing songs for Amelita to sing, including When Chloris Sleeps. Back to the main hallway, let's stroll a little slower than usual to enjoy all this artwork. Here is Archie Moore. He was a professional boxer, the longest reigning light heavyweight champion of all time, and considered one of the all-time greatest pound-for-pound boxers, with more knockouts than any other boxer to date. He began fighting in the 1930s, becoming light heavyweight champ in 1952, which he held until 1962. He retired from boxing in 1963, and had a second career as an actor, being chosen to play the role of runaway slave Jim in 1960's The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, as well as appearances on a number of TV shows. He died from heart failure at age 81. Across the hall, a little further down, in Corridor A, is Nat Pendleton. He was an Olympic wrestler, winning silver at the 1920 Olympics in Belgium. By the 30s, he had begun appearing in films, including as a strongman in The Great Ziegfeld, and alongside Thelma Todd in the film Deception, which he also wrote. He played Guild in The Thin Man, and was a regular in the Dr. Kildare series as Wayman. Nat Pendleton died from a heart attack at age 72. Our last stop here is down in the lower level. Oh look, a bowl of grapes. Good, I am famished. Welcome to Hollywood Grapeyard, where I set out to eat... oh, marble grapes. I'm not that hungry. Oh well, onward. In the Chapel of Promise, high on the right wall, we find the niche of Barbara Payton, one of Hollywood's many tragic blondes who, in the springtime of youth, made her way to Tinseltown to chase a dream, only to have that dream crumble into the kind of gritty nightmare so often seen in one of her crime dramas. Her breakout role as an actress was in the 1949 film noir Trapped. She would become known for roles in films noir, including in Kiss Tomorrow Goodbye, alongside James Cagney, a role which made her a star.
What do you want?
Lots of things.
Well, you're not going to find them here.
You'll be surprised what a man can find.
But her tumultuous personal life, rocky and sometimes violent relationships, and heavy partying would soon take their toll on her career. The poorly produced Bride of the Gorilla signaled the beginning of the end of her career. Hard drinking destroyed her physically and emotionally, sinking so low that she sometimes had to sleep on bus benches and resort to prostitution. Seeking refuge from her turbulent circumstances, she moved home with her parents in San Diego in 1967. There she would die of heart and liver failure at age 39. Just a few years before her death, she penned a tell-all autobiography titled, I Am Not Ashamed. And that will do it for Cypress View. Let's hop back across the street to the north, to Mount Hope Cemetery. Just one stop here in Division 8. This is where we find the final resting place of writer Raymond Chandler. He was a novelist and screenwriter, best known for his work in crime fiction. He was considered by many as a founder of the hard-boiled detective genre, along with the likes of Dashiell Hammett and James M. Cain. His first novel, The Big Sleep, was published in 1939. It would inspire two films, one starring Bogart and Bacall in 1946, and later starring Robert Mitchum in 1978. The inscription here, Dead Men Are Heavier Than Broken Hearts, is from The Big Sleep. He also wrote original screenplays not based on his books, including The Blue Dahlia and Double Indemnity, both of which earned him Oscar nominations. After his wife Cissy died in 1954, Chandler sunk into a deep and lonely depression, turning to alcohol and even a suicide attempt. Cissy's ashes were stored in nearby Cypress View, but never properly inurned. Chandler wished to be cremated and placed alongside Cissy after his death, but having left no official instructions, he was buried here in 1959, after his death at age 70. A half-century later, Chandler fans and historians brought a petition to claim the ashes of Cissy from storage at Cypress View and reinter them here at Mount Hope alongside Raymond so they could finally be together again. It was Valentine's Day in 2011. The last stop along our tour through San Diego is right on the coast, down Point Loma at Fort Rosecrans National Cemetery, which is adjacent to Naval Base Point Loma. This is where veterans and their families are laid to rest. While burials here had begun decades earlier, Fort Rosecrans officially became a national cemetery in 1934. The cemetery overlooks the San Diego Bay and the Pacific Ocean. It's nice to see that we saved the best view in San Diego for our brave veterans. Everyone here is a star in their own right, and if we had 1,000 years, we'd cover them all. But we don't, so let's take a little time to find some of those here who, in addition to serving their country, brought us a little entertainment along the way. The cemetery is divided by Cabrillo Memorial Drive into an east and west side. We'll begin just in from the entrance on the east side along the far wall of niches. Here we find actress Gloria Winters. She's best remembered for playing Penny King in 4 seasons of the 50s TV series Sky King. Other series include The Life of Riley as Jackie Gleason's daughter and The Range Rider. She retired from acting shortly after ending Sky King. Gloria was married to Dean Vernon, who was a sound designer for film and television. He did production sound for shows like Hill Street Blues, St. Elsewhere, and Lou Grant, earning 3 Emmy nominations throughout his career. Just northwest of here is Post Section 3. A little ways in, we find Dick Wessel. Not a leading actor, but a prolific one to be sure, with some 300 credits to his name. The fierce-looking character actor found his niche in roles of heavies, thugs, and tough guys, like Cue-Ball in Dick Tracy vs. Cue-Ball. Fans also remember him for appearances in a number of Three Stooges shorts, and a regular role in the TV series Riverboat. Wessel died of a heart attack at just 52. Northwest in this lawn, in the officers section, is writer Laurence Stallings. He lost his leg fighting in World War I. His experiences of the horrors of war inspired him to write and de-romanticize warfare. Among his best-known works is his collaboration with Maxwell Anderson on the 1924 play What Price Glory, which would be made into a couple of films. His semi-autobiographical novel Plumes was based on his experiences during and after World War I. This would inspire a silent film, King Vidor's The Big Parade, starring John Gilbert and Renee Adoré. The movie was a huge hit, one of the highest-grossing silent films of all time, and is now considered culturally, historically, and aesthetically significant by the Library of Congress. Other films he wrote or co-wrote include She Wore a Yellow Ribbon and Sabu's The Jungle Book. He died of a heart attack at age 73. Back across the street northeast, along the wall of niches, is Harry Spear, real name Harry Bonner. Fans of the Our Gang series of the 20s will recognize him as Harry in a number of shorts from 1927 to 1929. Aside from some time in vaudeville, he quit acting after the Our Gang series and disappeared entirely from show business. Interestingly, Bonner would deny he was in fact the Harry Spear of the Our Gang series until his death at age 84. So is this really Harry Spear? The evidence points to it, but he never did admit it. Passing by the chapel, we head south, reaching Section P on the right. This is Robert Kent, real name Douglas Blackley. The actor was a prize fighter before making the transition to the stage and screen. He would become a popular figure in serials of the 30s and 40s, like The Phantom Creeps. He also had a lead role in 1936's King of the Royal Mounted, and can be seen alongside Bing Crosby and Grace Kelly in The Country Girl. Kent fell into alcoholism, dying young at 46 from a coronary occlusion. Continuing to the southern end of the cemetery, we reach Section AF. All the way in along the southern fence is Irving Bacon. Few actors that we've ever visited have had as many screen credits as Bacon here, over 500 by some estimates. His career began in the silent era at Mack Sennett's studio. By the 30s, he'd found the role for which he is perhaps best remembered as the weary postman, Mr. Crumb, in the Blondie series, in close to a dozen films. Mr. Bacon had small roles in many of the major films of the era, including Gone with the Wind, The Grapes of Wrath, and Meet John Doe. And if you watched a TV show in the 50s and 60s, you probably spotted Bacon, including as Ethel Mertz's father on I Love Lucy. He lived to be 71. Nearby, along the eastern fence, is the grave of Sally Forrest. She began her career as a dancer before turning to acting. She's remembered today for starring in some of the rare films of the era helmed by a woman, including Not Wanted and Never Fear, both Ida Lupino films. Other films include The Strip, and one of her last films, Fritz Lang's While the City Sleeps. In 1953, she moved to New York with her husband and appeared on Broadway in The 7-Year Itch, as well as other stage productions. Sally retired from show business in the 60s and lived to be 86. Let's cross over Cabrillo Memorial Drive to the west side and stop at Section Y on the right. This is Richard Garrick. Born Richard O'Brien in Ireland, he emigrated to the United States in 1882 and would serve in the Philippine-American War. His acting career would begin on stage before entering silent film, acting in and even directing productions like His Father's Bugle in 1912. He would direct some 30 silent films in his career in both the States and Europe. He continued to act as well, and by the late 40s he found himself on stage in A Streetcar Named Desire. He would reprise his role as the Doctor alongside Marlon Brando and Vivien Leigh in the film adaptation. He died at age 83. Let's cross the street west to Section X, where the sky has miraculously cleared so we can enjoy this spectacular view. If you saw our Batman special, you'll recall that this is where we find Douglas Croft. In Gotham City, Batman's youthful sidekick is Robin the Boy Wonder, real name Dick Grayson. The first actor to portray Robin on screen was Douglas Croft, who was 16 at the time. It was in the 1943 serial, alongside Lewis Wilson's Batman. Wilson also being famous as the first to portray Batman on screen.
You all right, Batman?
Yeah. That really was a close call. You did some fast thinking.
Those bells ring, we better get out of here. We don't want the police to find us in these outfits.
Douglas Croft had a string of roles playing younger versions of characters, including a young George M. Cohan in Yankee Doodle Dandy, a young Drake McHugh in King's Row, and a young Lou Gehrig in The Pride of the Yankees. He retired from acting in the late 40s. Not much is known about Croft in the years that followed, only that he died from acute alcohol intoxication at the age of 37. Our next stop is a little further up Section X, next to the road. This is David Ford. In the world of the 60s Gothic soap opera Dark Shadows, David Ford played Sam Evans and Andre Dupre in over 100 episodes. He's also known for playing John Hancock in stage and screen productions of 1776. He died from a heart attack at age 57. Back across the street east is Section W. Up the hill we find Jacques Jaccard. He was an early writer and director in Hollywood who specialized in writing serials, action, and westerns during the silent era at Universal. These include The Great Air Robbery and The Red Ace. He also co-directed with William Desmond Taylor, The Diamond from the Sky, starring Lottie Pickford. Jaccard never really found his footing in the sound era, only directing a handful of low-grade talkies, finishing off his career focusing on writing and dialogue directing. He died at age 73. Let's enjoy this magnificent view one last time as a cool marine layer rolls in from the ocean. Finally, we circle back around toward the main entrance. Let's stop just at the gate. North is another row of niches, along which we find Gregg Barton, whose real name was Harold Barker. He was known as one of Western film and television's great supporting actors, proudly proclaiming that he'd been knocked down by every major Western star, including Annie Oakley. Among these many Western series Barton appeared in are The Gene Autry Show, The Range Rider, Annie Oakley, The Lone Ranger, and Death Valley Days. His films include Flying Tigers and The Man from Laramie. Barton was awarded the Silver Star at the Battle of Iwo Jima during World War II. He lived to be 88. And that concludes our tour. What are some of your favorite memories of the stars we visited today? Share them in the comments below, and be sure to like, share, and subscribe for more famous grave tours. Thanks for watching. We'll see you on the next one.
Well, for all of us here at
Hollywood Graveyard, I'm Arthur Dark.
You stay classy, San Diego.
And thanks for stopping by.
But mainly, stay classy.
Thanks for stopping by.
Stay classy.
I'm Arthur Dark.
Thanks for stopping by.